How many people play official PvP versus PvE? How many official players are there in total? This is a question we have got no answer until now. I have looked into the numbers and I will give you some answers. Now you will ask why. With the release of Fjordur, the last community map on ARK Survival Evolved, it has been made very clear that this map was made with PvE in the back of the head. Map creator Nikato said in several statements that he does not build nor care for PvP. This raised a little shitstorm in the PvP community, who felt treated badly despite being the dominant play mode, like they say. And despite everything always being PvE and nobody cared about PvP, like they said. It went to the point where Nikatos himself even got personally attacked by PvP content creators. So my goal was to look into the numbers myself and to see the size of this so-called dominant play mode myself. Now, about how did I do it? First of all, there are limitations. There are no official numbers, and this is something I will have to make clear from the very beginning. All numbers we will ever find are from third-party data collections or platforms themselves. And second, these numbers only apply to Steam because other platforms are not transparent about their player numbers. So please be aware that these numbers can never be complete, but they are, let's say, a window looking at least into Steam. And now, how do we get the numbers? To get the numbers, we wrote several programs that made use of the public Battlemetrics API. Battlemetrics collects an insane amount of data about servers and players on servers. They do not make everything available on their website, but if you are into programming, you can make use of their public API and write your own scripts and search the data for very specific filters. On their very own website, their filters are very basic and did not help a lot in answering the questions, and therefore we did some manual labor. And now, what did we really look for? Focusing on official numbers has been a priority for me because official has always been treated as the way to play ARK. Being a content creator for basically as long as ARK exists, I came across a few people who would disregard all content that has not been recorded and been done on official as cheating and not legit. And there are certain things I have been looking into in particular. First, how many people play on official servers? Then, which group is bigger, PvP or PvE? Then third, which PvE game mode is the most popular? Fourth, which servers have the highest player density? And last, how do official player numbers compare to the total player numbers? So let's talk about the main groups in ARK. For official servers, we have in PvP, we have small tribes, ARKpocalypse, beginner servers, regular PvP, cross-ARK, conquest, and hardcore. And for PvE, we have a little bit less. We have the beginner servers, regular PvE, legacy PvE, and cross-ARK. And then there is the topic with unofficial servers, and here we run into a problem. Inexperienced ARK players would now say, oh, just split them into PvE and PvP and you got your numbers. But that's not that easy, unfortunately. Many servers are set to PvP, but they won't allow PvP, but only PvE. PvP mode is activated to make certain things in the game easier. Breeding, for example. But I can give you an overview about PvP and PvE servers and how they are used. On official, there are PvP servers that are presented as an alternative to official servers. They have big clusters, regular wipes, and so-called seasons. Then for PvP and PvE, there are also the insane boosted 1000x everything, jump in, get kit, and kill things. Then there are PvP deathmatch servers, which have nothing to do with the survival, but are only to, you spawn in and shoot each other. Then there is PvP, but that is actually PvE and it's only set to PvP for breeding. Then there are PvP, PvE roleplay servers, which are set to PvP for played conflicts. Then there are PvP, PvE content creator servers, which are just for content creators like YouTubers or streamers to do their content on. And then there are the PvP, PvE extremely modded and new game mode servers like Primal Fear, Pugnacia, and so on. And because this is really complicated and a ton of data, unofficial servers are now out of the scope for this video, and we will look further into it in another video. And the amount of data for unofficial servers is insanely big. We created a list with about 130,000 unofficial servers, and that's not even the whole amount. But let's go into what we found out. First of all, how many players are on official servers. And we start with the elephant in the room and look at the data about how many players we have found on official servers alone. The number was surprisingly low, but when we look into it, It was actually not as surprising as I might have thought in the beginning, since official servers have really harsh play conditions in which you have to reset your base once a week or it despawns. We have collected the data in the week starting with September 10th, and the lowest amount of players per mode in this week was around 2,000 players. The highest amount of players per mode was around 6,000 players, and we looked into a total of about 1,800 official servers. But which group is bigger, PvE or PvP? When comparing the numbers of both groups, the amount of players on PvP and PvE seems to be very even on official servers, with a slight tendency towards PvP at the end of the week. The reason why a week started so strong was because the beginner servers and also Apocalypse servers were wiped the day before we started collecting data, and many people enjoy the fresh beach bop lifestyle for a few days. While official PvE has just a few modes in which people hang out and build their little or quite massive dream houses, on PvP there are a lot of modes. And thanks to the suggestion from Shockist, with who I had a very pleasant conversation about this topic, I decided to also look into the specific numbers for the different PvP modes. So which game mode in PvP has the most players? Shouldn't be a surprise to any PvP player at all. And we all knew that regular PvP and small tribes have been the most popular for PvP players in total. But I need to point out two more game modes here in particular. One is the beginner servers, who managed to actually be clearly visible on my graph that I'm showing you right now, with only having 2 servers. And the second is hardcore PvP. Shout out to the 20 badass people who try to stay strong in a cold world where dying is basically your best character debugger. You're actually MVP here. And now we look into which servers have the highest player density, because a high amount of player numbers does not reflect how many players would you meet when entering a server. 100 players may sound many, but if they split between 100 servers, then you're very lonely in your PvP game. Beginner servers and the Apocalypse servers will offer you the highest chance to meet other people and have some quick PvP moments. No wonder, because these reset regularly and keep the gameplay fresh. The average player count on small tribes is between 3 and 8 people, which is interesting because the maximum tribe size here is 6 players, so it looks like we have split up the servers evenly between the tribes. Hardcore servers have on average 1 person per server. It's hard, but honest work. Keep in mind that these are average numbers and not the exact numbers, so it doesn't mean that there are actually no players on the servers, but it means that the fighting action happens on a few selected servers and not every single server in the network. And we have seen this in the big raids, which are regularly streamed on Twitch by the big content creators. Let's look how these numbers we have collected compare to official numbers of players in ARK. In my opinion, this is probably the most fascinating graph of them all, because it shows very well how small the official player group is compared to the gigantic group of unofficial servers and even single player survivors. My own best guess would be that about half of the total players are in single player, but take this, like everything in this video, with a grain of salt, because those numbers are collected and combined from different platforms and therefore can't be exact or official. Especially single player numbers are hard to track because they don't show up in the server statistics and could even be players just logging in or waiting to get on a server that is currently capped. So the data does not know if you are actually in a single player game or if you're just in the menu waiting for something. Because I already see certain big PvP creators yell "lol, a dead game" into their microphones, let's talk about what these numbers actually mean. First of all, we figured out that the official playstyle is not for everyone, and I already said this before, and these numbers just prove it. The official game mode is rough, and only players who are 200% dedicated to the game can really keep up with the maintenance and the online time these servers require. Because there's so much dedication that is put into the game, people often develop a little bit of an elite mindset. That happens in PvP and PvE equally, so no shade to either of the game modes. But second, the official play style does not represent how the game is played by the majority of the players. And this is interesting for content creators, because if they want to make authentic and relatable content, it's important to understand that the majority of the players do not play the game the way the creator plays. It also reflects how much of a turn off this elitist official mindset really is. And then we also need to keep in mind there is a problem with balancing, and it's a very sensitive point for many players and for the fact how the game is balanced. A lot of balancing patches evolve around PvP and official PvP. To name just a few: Procoptodon nerf, where you can't pick them up easily anymore because PvP used them for mashing; the Mana Gamma nerf that turned the mana from a travel mount into a very harmless but annoying puppy; C4 limitations, kill measures, rocket launcher nerf, and there's also a ton of creatures that pretty much have their main usage in PvP and are nothing more than a collector's item in PvE. And I think the most important conclusion we come to with these numbers is that ARK players love the game, but they love to play the game like they want. ARK is far from being a dead game, sorry to disappoint all the negative Nancys out there. ARK did not only manage to keep its player base since 2016, but they also managed to increase the baseline of players in the past few years. I said this before, this is thanks to unofficial servers, modders, and the creativity of the server admins that try to offer new experience even if you already have 10,000 hours playtime in the game. What can we hope for ARK 2 as a consequence of this? I would love to see 2 different balancing setups for PvP and PvE. The game modes are played so differently that it's really hard, if not impossible, to combine everyone's interest with just one setup. I understand that it will cause having basically 2 games, but it would remove the animosity between players of both playstyles and not putting the burden of responsibilities on the shoulder of either of them when patches are happening. We have seen the start of different setups in ARK 1 already. PvE, for example, has no cryo sickness, but I would love to see more of that, and if not in ARK 1, then at least in ARK 2. And I will put into the description of this video my shout out to everyone who helped me with collecting the data and putting it all together. And I hope you like this video and let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. I'll see you next time. Bye!